My next guest I had the privilege to sit down with, in my opinion, is one of the best episodes I've had. Nothing to any of the other guests. All my guests have been amazing. But this guest is like the epitome of Black trans excellence. He is an author, an actor, an international trans advocate, and a senior military officer. Within this episode, we discussed gender dysphoria and why we don't subscribe necessarily to gender dysphoria. We also discussed Black trans men's lives specifically, and the wanting and willingness to empower, equip, and elevate the voices, visibility, and representation of Black trans men. This is a really good episode, and not just a good episode because I am a Black trans man, and not because if you're listening, you are a Black trans man, but this is a really good episode, and it highlights the reason behind Dem Bois Podcast of amplifying the voices of trans men of color. And this is a perfect example of how there's no blueprint to life. There's no blueprint to transitioning. But if you lean in and you listen and follow your purpose, you will grow into who you're supposed to be and who you're meant to be in this life. So I hope that you enjoy. Hello and welcome to Dem Bois Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Aaron, he, him, his, and I will be your guide throughout this journey on the show. This show is a platform where trans men of color voices will be amplified as we share our stories. Trans men of color are not monolithic. What that means is our journeys are not the same. We come from different backgrounds. We have different stories, family relations, chosen family, and most of all, we have different transition journeys. Visibility equals possibility. I like to say that all the time. We like to highlight on this show trans men of color businesses and entrepreneurs, parents, athletes, survivors, and many other issues and topics that are relatable to trans men of color in our existence. Dem Bois Podcast is not only a platform to amplify our voices, but to raise awareness and conversation around our lived experiences. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting, listening, and sharing the show. Welcome to Dem Bois Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Aaron, he, him, his, and my next guest is an author, an actor, an international trans advocate, and a senior military officer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sean. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, definitely. I'm so happy to have you here. It's a privilege to have you here. I feel like you are an accomplished person. And so I hope I serve you justice by having you here and we tap into the right things.
Let's go. I have no doubt that we would do that.
All right. So you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes. So I'm Dr. Elijah Nicholas. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm born and raised in the great city and state of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, respectively. I live in the ATL now. Have been here for, I'll just say, a little while. And I'm a retired senior military officer. Spent 24 years, 10 months, and 8 days between the U.S. Army and the Air Force.
Nice. That's a long time. Thank you for your service. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
Yeah. So I like to start it off when I ask guests, so the name Elijah, how did that name choose you?
Wow. I love how you say that. How did it choose me? Because it definitely chose me, Sean. I was stationed in Ramstein Air Force Base in 2002 to 2007, off and on. And I remember vividly one day I woke up at about 2:00 in the morning and I wrote the names Elijah and Nicholas on my nightstand. And I thought at the time this was the name of my twin boys that I wanted to have, because being born female, assigned the female sex at birth, I wanted to actually biologically carry children and have, my own biological children. And so at the time I thought that was my kids' names. I thought that's what God was giving me at the time. Well, I just, I tucked it away, put it in my Bible, and never thought about it again, never, went back to it. And then all these years later, when I decided to affirm my truth, these names kept coming back to me. Elijah specifically kept coming back to me. And so at the time of my transition, I was actually pastoring. And so the name Jehovah led me to Elijah and down like this rabbit hole. And I started researching. And it was a name that really just, like it never went away when I wrote it down. That's when the name found me, as you see, the way you asked that question. And I affirmed it. My spirit affirmed and confirmed it when it was time for me to transition. And it was just so natural, so organic, so me. And my middle name, my formal middle name was Nicole. And so Nicholas, I didn't know at the time, obviously, when I wrote it down, but Nicholas is a way of honoring my mother and her naming me Nicole at birth. And since I wrote it down and she named me that, I thought it was a nice compromise.
Oh, I love that. You know, it's funny how you look at certain people and you hear their name and you look at them, you look like an Elijah. Like you look like that is meant to be your name. Like I hear you when you say the spirit called you. Like the
Thank
spirit
you.
definitely knows what to do. And I'm gonna be a little honest with you. Growing up, I hated the name Elijah.
Is that
Nothing to
right?
yes, nothing towards you, but my
Uh-huh.
father's name is Elijah. And
Oh,
my father was
wow.
never in my life. So looking at the
Mm-hmm.
name, if your name was Elijah, I wouldn't even like you. I wouldn't even have to know you, but I just didn't
Mm-hmm.
like that name. And so I've grown, obviously, right? A little
Mm-hmm.
therapy and a little
Sure.
self-work. And now the name
Yes.
doesn't affect me as much, but I just wanted to be honest with that. Of like, I hated that name when I was a kid. Like anybody name it, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. You know, I
Yeah.
just felt
Yeah.
like everybody was a representation of the man who had me with my mother. So it upset
Yes.
me to see the name, but I'm over that.
Yeah.
Nothing towards you. I love your
Oh,
name. It fits you.
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. And you know
Yeah.
what? It's something because, and I'm sure we'll talk about this as we get into the interview, but that I think that is very profound of you to acknowledge and recognize, right? That this name carried so much weight
Mhm.
with you, if I may use those words, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is for me, my transition has been a spiritual awakening. Like every piece of my journey has been a spiritual awakening. And so when I hear you say like this name, you know, didn't it didn't resonate with me as I was growing up for various reasons, and then be able to articulate why it didn't. Like kudos to you because that's
Mm.
huge. Because a lot of times we might not even like a person and we don't even know why. Like I could have met you 20 years ago. My name was Elijah, and you'd be like, "There's something about that cat I just don't like," and it's
Yeah.
just my name, right?
Yeah.
But now by you recognizing that and knowing that, it's that's huge. Kudos to you for doing therapy, man. Self work.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I talk about therapy on the show all the time. I'm a huge fan of therapy and self-work and just continuously bettering yourself mentally and
Mm-hmm.
in all aspects of that. So we're interested to know, like, tell us your transition journey from beginning until right now, from wherever you want to start.
Sure. So now in hindsight, I realized that my transition journey started when I was a kid. And I now realize that because when I was when I was growing up, I didn't understand why, I wasn't doing boy things. I didn't understand why I was assigned girl things like kitchen duties and washing dishes and cooking and all that stuff, which I didn't mind doing. But because I was told to do it as a kid, of course, I was like, I don't want to do that. Especially with my brother sitting over there on the couch, like, all he
Mm.
got to do is take out the trash. Like, wait a minute. Something ain't adding up here, right? And so, in addition to that, I never, like as a kid, I never understood why I sat down to pee. I was just like, my brothers stand up. Why am I not standing up? My cousins stand up. And so, in hindsight, my transition journey began many years ago, but I didn't understand it, and I didn't have the terminology for it, right? So I'm 53 years young. I'm really 5 years young, and because I started my transition 5 years ago, right? And so I always tell people I'm 5 years old. I'm a baby, right?
Mm.
I may have been in this physical body for 53 years, but my Elijah has only been on this earth for 5 years. I transitioned in 2017. Really, I started my mental health journey then. Did therapy for about 8 months, and then really began to affirm in my gender and understand what gender dysphoria was. But I personally do not subscribe to gender dysphoria for various reasons. But I began to understand medically and mentally what was going on with my body back when I was a kid, and I didn't understand why I had to sit down and pee or why I had to do female assigned things. And so I started hormone replacement therapy in 2018. In 2017, when I was going through mental health therapy, it was one of the most tumultuous times in my life, to be quite honest. I was a pastor at the time, as I mentioned before, and I was married as well. And so when I was affirmed as an apostle on August 31st, 2017, I remember when the other apostle prayed on my head, and I heard the words, "It is finished." And I did not know. I had no idea. First of all, I was like, did anybody else hear that? Is that like me? Did y'all hear? It was loud, like it was a loud whisper. And if you know anything, which I'm sure you do, about the scripture, when Jesus said at the cross, "It is finished," that's what resonated with me. I was like, well, what's finished? Well, I quickly found out, because within 6 months of that date in 2017, I was separated, on my way to divorce. All of our ministries had closed. I was no longer pastoring this, leading this fellowship. And, I started hormone replacement therapy, and my life literally was turned upside down. I thought, right? And that was really the beginning of Elijah's journey. That was the physical beginning, the birthing, if you will, of Elijah appearing and coming to fruition in the earth.
I want to go back for a second. And you said that you don't subscribe to gender dysphoria. But, that's a terminology that's used often, right? When folks talk about their gender identity and folks talk about gender expansiveness. What is it about it that you don't subscribe to? Want to explain that a little bit?
Sure. I personally don't subscribe to any of it. Let me say, so there's a couple layers there, right, Sean? I think it's important for me to say a couple things. One, I am a doctor. I have a DBA, a Doctorate of Business Administration. So I'm not a MD, meaning I'm not a medical doctor, right? So the things I say don't come from a medical doctorate degree. The second thing is, the only reason that I use the word transgender is because that's the societal context that people understand, people like us, right? That's the word that we use today in 2023. The third thing is, I don't subscribe to gender dysphoria because, for me, that suggests that God did something wrong. I personally don't believe God did anything wrong when he created me, when he created us. I think humans need to call it something to be able to understand why a person is different. And so I personally don't subscribe to gender dysphoria. I understand it. I get my testosterone because of it. And so for that reason, it is what it is, but I personally don't describe it. I no longer say that I have gender dysphoria. I say that I am who I am, and I was born in the right body at the right time in God's great creation.
Ooh, I love that. That was powerful. I love that. And it's funny that you say that. I've never thought of it in that way, but I've said many times before that every step in my life I've actually was okay with. When I identified as a lesbian, I was okay with that part. And so then I progressed as time went on, right? Then I got to a point in my life where I was like, okay, I don't want to identify as this no more. I want to transition, right? And it wasn't because of a dysphoria type thing. It was just my body shifted, my mind shifted. I grew, learned myself a little bit more. And then I just moved on to the next step in my life and my chapter, right? I also agree that I'm no mistake. And if you believe in a higher power or God or spirituality or whatever you believe in, I believe in whatever that was is what made me who I am today. And I'm allowed to walk in my purpose because that's how I was made, right? So I totally agree with that. I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so like all of these things cleared out of your life, right? And it ties into spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about purpose. Do you believe that everything was cleared out of your life at that time so that you could become Elijah?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I believe that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Like, I know that those painful retractions, if you will, I don't know if that's the right word, subtractions, right, from my life, those things and people that were removed. Oh God, it was the most painful time of my life, but it had to happen so that Elijah could be birthed. And I just thought about this analogy. For me, it was my labor pain, right? It was the labor pain of Elijah being birthed. You know, when I think about the labor that my mother went through when she was birthing me, and she talks about still to this day how there's a term for it when the baby is like horizontal, and she was like, you just refuse to turn around, like you would not go vertical, you did not want to come out. And so I think there was a bit of that tension going on as well when I was you know, deciding whether I was going to transition and affirm my true self. And that was really, it was the labor pains to being born. And um, many people don't have the courage to do that. I think we are some of the most courageous spirits that have taken on the human experience, that have ever evolved or ever existed. Because it's a painful process, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a painful
Absolutely.
process.
Absolutely. Physically, I won't say that it's like a ouch hurt type of pain, but physically it's a lot of movement. Just like you said, it's painful, right? You
Mm-hmm,
lose people, you grieving yourself.
mm-hmm,
And it's a
mm-hmm.
process. So I definitely agree with that. Like, yeah, it is definitely a rebirthing process. And I want to say I'm grateful though that you survived that birthing process. Right. And
Thank
also your
you.
mother, because a lot of folks, and we know people of color, when there's problems with birth giving, it's not always a
Yes.
good outcome. So that's also a blessing. So it's also that divine creator is like, no, you're gonna be here.
Ooh.
You're meant
Yes.
to be
Yes.
here, and you are where you
Yes.
are right now because I created you, and you're here, right? Not to get on like
Yes.
the spiritual thing, but
No, no,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. So
Can I say something that you just made me think about?
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Such an analogy. So, one of the things that we have coming up is the reproductive justice think tank, right? And one of the reasons that we're doing that 100 Black Trans Men Incorporated is because of the high infant mortality rate for Black women specifically, right?
Mm,
And so I think that obviously we're talking about the inclusion of trans and non-binary individuals in this discussion. But when you just said that, Sean, you made me think about when you said we know, like in the birthing process with Black people, and when you think about um, the disconnections that happen for us specifically in the Black community when we are being birthed, like that, like for me, that just screams so loud at me. Like it's such a parallelism there
mm,
of the Black trans person being birthed, the Black trans male specifically, those of us who were born assigned female and transitioning to male, that birthing process, a lot of people don't make it through that
mm,
process. And when I say make it, I mean make it with their families. Oftentimes that's the death
mm,
of their family, like that. And I see that equating to the death of the infant who is often lost to the Black mother, right, for
mm.
various reasons. So wow, thank you for that. Like you just gave me something to ponder on and to research some more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and also when we speak on the Black families, and losing your family, it's heavy because I lost a lot of folks along the way as well, and I think it's about having a more of an understanding as a community, right, and more
Mm-hmm.
openness. And I was thinking about this earlier today, how we are so dismissive, right?
Mm,
we want to stand up for all things that are black, rights and all of these things, but we're so
mhm.
dismissive to our children and our family members if we're considered I want to say, quote unquote, different, right? We don't have that understanding. So yes, it's a lot of loss in the process. And so you're right. I know folks that want to transition, but they just don't have the courage to do so. So just looking at somebody across from me on the screen, looking at you, I'm like, it shows resilience, right? Because you want to show up and be exactly who you know you are supposed to be. And it takes a lot of courage, right?
Yeah. And likewise.
Yeah. And so you mentioned 100 Black trans men, and that's actually was going to be my next question to you. It's an organization that you founded. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yes. So 100 Black trans men, I founded that this year, 2023. And I founded it for reasons that we talk about. Like, we don't see one another across the screen. We don't see one another in media, in entertainment, in executive and C-suite positions. And I founded it because, honestly, when I was transitioning, I didn't see myself, right? And so I realized that I had to become myself. And in becoming myself, I wanted to help others become their highest self and live their most authentic life. And that's the purpose of 100 Black trans men, is to empower, equip, and elevate the voices, visibility, and representation specifically of Black transgender men. And so I love, the purpose of your show when you're raising the visibility and awareness of Black trans men. Like, it is right in alignment. So I'm not surprised at all that we're on this call right now.
Yeah. You know what? As you say it like that, you're absolutely right. I believe in purpose and like things being put in your path for a reason. So it's definitely a reason for it, right? And so you say 100 Black trans men. It's because you only want to reach 100 folks, or like what's behind that name? 100, specifically 100.
Well, what's behind the name specifically was a vision and a couple of dreams that I had, and that's what I saw. That's what that's what Spirit gave me when I was walking right across the street around my pond. I literally was walking, and like the universe was like, pop, 100 Black trans men. And I was like, okay, like that's it. Right now we have 17 folks going through our mentoring program. It included me, as 18 of us. And so my goal, really, the 100 is 100 leaders, right? So the organization, I believe and know that it's going to grow well beyond 100 Black trans men. But right now, this first 100 that we're pruning and developing and calling forth, that are coming forth, are leaders, and not just leaders that are my age, 53-year-olds. We have, I think our youngest person is in their 20s, like early 20s. I don't even know if they're like 21 yet. So it's my goal to really, really, really bring together leaders who can then go out and create other leaders. It's really discipleship at its best when you think about it from a Christian perspective. In Matthew, I think the scripture is 28, 19, and 20. Go out and create nations, or disciples in nations, or something. I'm not a theologian, so y'all don't crash me on that scripture. But where Jesus talks about going and creating disciples, like, I think we limit the context and meaning of that scripture. And so 100 Black trans men is really an example and a replicate of doing that, and going out into the world, into the nations, and letting other Black, trans, and non-binary folks know that, one, we are here, and we are great, and we are beautiful, and we are magnificent, and we are loved, and we exist. We've always existed. And now we want to help the world understand how we're going to fit in, not how to let us fit in, but how we're going to fit in the things that we came to this earth to do at this time.
I love that.
Thank
I always say visibility equals possibility.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
So for somebody listening, though, say, hey, I'm a Black trans man. I want to be a leader, or I am a leader, or I'm on the course to be a leader in the future. How can they be a part of the organization?
So our website address is www.100, the number 100blacktransmen.com. You can go to that website to learn more. And then you can also email us at funding. That's just like it sounds, funding at 100blacktransmen.com. And when the next cohort opens up, which is going to be 2024, we've already got a wait list for our cohort for next year. When that cohort opens up, we'll get you signed up and registered, and you go through an interview with me. I personally interview every person that comes through the program. And then we'll get you started in the next cohort.
Nice. I love that. When I think of it, I'm thinking, because you were a senior military officer, former officer, I think boot camp. So I'm thinking I'm about to put on some boots and you about to wake me up at 6 a.m. We about to be running 3 minutes. What exactly is it? So people can know before they sign up. They're like, hey, I don't want to go to boot camp. I don't want no parts of that. Like what exactly is it that will be happening?
So now when I add that 6 a.m. jog in our boots, I could give Sean credit for it.
Nah, don't do that to people.
So it really is. So there's 3 phases, right? There's the mindset phase, which is the first 30 days, really the first 60 days. And then there's the leadership phase, which is 6 months, which is the phase that we're in now. And then there's the access and elevation phase, right? And so the mindset phase really is boot camp. It's a mindset boot camp. And the reason that I believe Spirit had me do the mindset phase first is because anytime you're creating an organization, it's important to lead with leaders who are all on a collective mindset, right? We have so much unresolved trauma in not just in our community, meaning the trans community, but we have so much unresolved trauma in the Black community. Absolutely. So when you look at all of those layers, there's no way that, in my opinion, that you can bring a group of individuals, myself included, who have lived through so much and quite frankly is still living through trauma and triggers. There's no way to bring us together and have a sustainable future without first focusing on the mindset and making sure that individuals understand their worth, understand their purpose, understand how to manifest, and understand what leadership is, right? So towards the end, when we talk about manifesting in the mindset phase, then we shift over to leadership. Now, how are you going to lead? How are you going to lead it from a holistic perspective? How are you going to go out into a world that really could trigger you simply by opening your front door? Like, how are you going to live and exist in that? What tools do you have in place? So when you're triggered, if you're triggered, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do when we go to the White House and you get certain people from certain areas of politics, writing about you in the magazines? Like, how are you going to deal with that? So those are all the things that we're talking about now, not those things, but ourselves, right? And getting ourselves in line and really getting mentally strong. So it is a lot like boot camp. Then once we get through the leadership phase, then we go into the access and elevation phase. And that's where we have our community partnerships, where we're working with organizations to help matriculate these individuals to leadership positions, to C-suite executive positions, political positions. It is my goal before I die to see a Black trans man as president. I may not see it like in this physical life. If it happens 100 years from now, then I know that the work that we're doing is not in vain.
I love that. Thank
that. You.
And I think when you say that a Black trans man as president, I believe that could be possible. And I may not see it in my lifetime either, but we also didn't think we would see a Black man in the office either, right? And we saw that twice.
Yes.
8 years. I meant to say 2 terms, but yeah, but that I love that, because when we talk about politics, and I don't want to really discuss politics too much here, but when we talk about politics, we got to talk about who are the ones writing these laws and who are the ones sitting at these tables. We talking about old ass white men. Mm-hmm. We need to get more people of color, younger people, gender diverse people in offices and in elected positions. And that's when shit will start to shift and change, because it's a different perspective, right? It's not that old antiquated mindset right?
Colonialistic.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's things
Yeah,
that's only benefiting them and they folks. We want people in
right.
there that's benefiting everybody, that thinks about everybody
Everybody.
collectively as what this country is built on. If you think ideally what this country stands for, it sounds great, right? But in practice, that ain't what we doing.
Come
Right.
on
So
now.
so it would be great to see
Yeah.
some black trans men in office. And it just would be good to see. Let's just say that. So in the
Yeah.
future, I love what you're doing. I love that.
Thank you.
Pruning folks to be leaders. We need
Yes.
leaders, right? We
Yes.
need in our community, we need to start thinking more of, I don't want to be, let me say this correctly. I don't want to look down on anyone who has these career ideas, right? If you say, hey, I want to be a ball player, or hey, I want to be a rapper, or hey, I want to be
Mm-hmm.
this, and
Mm-hmm.
that. But we need to start thinking outside of those things and think about positions and think about careers that can shift and change our neighborhoods, shift and change just our communities in general that will benefit us. We need to
Right.
start thinking. So to think about you building leaders up, I love that.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it.
Thank
Great.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, this is Sean Aaron. I'm the founder and executive director of Dem Bois Inc. I am also the host of Dem Bois Podcast. As you may know, Dem Bois provides financial assistance to trans men of color in order for them to obtain gender affirming surgery. We have great news. We're currently looking for volunteers to help support our programs. Our programs include our gender affirming surgery grant program and also our personal care package program. We personally curate packages filled with personal hygiene items. Just to name a few, things like tissue, soap, towels, toothpaste, and toothbrushes. We mail them out to trans men of color across the country who may be in need of help caring for their personal hygiene needs. We are looking for volunteers to help raise funds to support our programs. Also, we're looking for someone locally to the Bay Area to help us put all of the care packages together. If our mission is something that resonates with you and you would like to help support our work, just let us know. You can send an email to hello@dembois.org. That is HELLO@DEMBOIS.org. And we will get back to you with further details. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the next episode.
I realized walking around that pond that day that's a part of my purpose, right? And it really is my passion to help build people up. I love when people are living at their highest point, their highest point in their life, living their best life, right? And so I want our siblings to understand that they too have that possibility. Like
Absolutely.
you don't have to watch someone else thrive. You can thrive too.
Absolutely.
Is it going to take work? Yes. Is it going to take pain? Yes. It's going to take discipline? Yes. Is it going to be rewarding on the other side? Absolutely. Unequivocally. Yes.
Yes, I love that. And it's enough, right? It's enough for everybody to eat.
Yes. You know what? That's a whole 3 more podcasts, bro.
You're right. We get that scarcity mindset, like this person is doing it, so I guess I can't do it. Nah, we
No.
all can do it. I
Yes.
saw this bulletin board. I talked about this on one episode. I can't remember, but I saw a bulletin board to say is how did it go? It was just pretty much loosely saying that it's not gonna happen unless you do it because it's meant for you to do it. You can't sit around wait for somebody else to do it, right? Because the way somebody else doing it ain't gonna be the way you do it. So it's meant for
Right.
you to do it. So get up
Yeah.
and do it.
Get up
So
and
it's enough for
come on now.
everybody. Yeah.
That's the tweet right there today.
Get up and do it.
Well, not the tweet, it's the post because I don't fool with the Twitter no more.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, me
saying,
either.
yeah, that's a whole nother. That's another podcast too. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So I want to talk about first. I want to go back. I do want to ask you a question because I want to talk about your education, but I also want to go back to when you talked about your transition and you talked about getting separated, and then I'm assuming that then came divorce. Am I correct?
Yes.
So are you and your ex-spouse, are you still talking? Are you friends? Or are you like, okay, no, I don't want to have nothing to do with you. You don't have nothing to do with me. Cool. Like what is that situation like?
That's a great question. So we went years in that space of we not like speaking at all. And now we're in a space of peace, in a space of being cordial to one another, in a space of hugging and laughing and fellowshipping and having dinner together. So I was thinking about it recently. Like my mom used to always say, Father Time heals everything. And Father Time has been gracious to us because we recently actually have come back together and have been able to be in the same room and laugh and talk about the kids and the family and yeah, it's there's no experience, there's no blue book for transitioning or blueprint for transitioning, right? And just like there's no blueprint for us, there's no blueprint for spouses and partners either. And
Absolutely.
that's something that oftentimes I think is forgotten about, to be quite honest. And that's why one of the programs that we have in 100 Black Trans Men is family development and spousal support, spousal/partner support, whatever that looks like for an individual. Because I think that I know that my former wife and I, as beautiful as she is, we didn't have answers. Like we had experiences before. One. And two, we just didn't know what to do. We didn't have any mentors to talk to. We didn't, so it was a lot. And it took being separated and divorced for me to really understand the value and importance of grace and knowing that, not just with my former wife, but with my mother and my family and just showing grace, like to say, like, we even looking at it as a whole, the space we're in the earth now, we've never been here before. All the tension that's going on with trans legislation and gender affirming care, and more people transitioning every day. We have more kids transitioning and affirming who they are, and there's no blueprint for this, right? And so yes, there's gonna be points of pain, and then guess what? You become the blueprint creator, right? No, the first
Absolutely.
person who created blueprint or even the word blueprint had to understand by going through what it was first,
Ooh, I love that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're on the road, I believe, to friendship again now. And my former wife she's a beautiful woman. She was beautiful when we were married, and she's still a beautiful, amazing woman.
That's great that you can say that and reflect on that. I love that. I love
Thank
that.
you.
There's hope in healing relationships, whatever
Yes.
the relationships are, right? You just
Yes.
it takes two people, two parties to be open to
Yes.
communicating and growing and learning, right? And not
Yes.
shutting ourselves off. Because I read in your bio, you say you are a lifelong learner. So a
Hmm.
lifelong learner means everything, not just education and in books, right? But it's in growing
Yes.
and learning yourself and learning other people and learning the world. And it brings me to something. I'm it just brings up something that's kind of been bothering me
Hmm.
when you talk about no blueprint. And I don't
Mm.
know if you've heard of this recently. I try not to be on social media, but somebody sent this to me, so I got sucked in. But I don't know
You got
if you
sucked
know,
in.
but you know the artist Neo, right?
Uh-huh.
And did you hear his statement that he made maybe like 2 weeks ago about people allowing their children to transition?
No, no, I didn't. Let me say, I don't listen to a lot of stuff. I don't own any TVs, and I limit
Okay.
my social media intake. So it's not a surprise that I haven't heard it.
Okay. I'm just gonna touch on it just a little bit. He just talked. I disagree with what he said because, for one, before I feel like if you're in a certain position, certain things you shouldn't
Hmm.
talk about if you don't have experience with. That's the first thing.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
also, I think that you should educate yourself first. And you got to become a lifelong learner. You can't be
Hmm.
rigid and you can't cut yourself off from learning new things. And so one of his comments was, I come from a place where there was just two genders, male and female.
Hmm.
And so what it brings me back to of this blueprint is nobody has the blueprint to this, right? We don't
Hmm.
have a we
Hmm.
don't even have the blueprint to life. Only thing we know is
Hmm.
we born and we die. That's it. Right? All other stuff in between is made up
Yeah.
shit. We don't know, right?
We
But
don't
it's
know.
it's that
Yeah.
it's like we don't have a blueprint for it, but you just got to open up your mind and be willing to
Right.
learn, educate yourself, and to learn about other people, even if it's different from what you know. Right.
Yes.
That's the one great thing
Hmm.
about being a human being is that none of us are monolithic. We're not the same. And then
Right.
we all are different. And it's about learning people different, but still wanting to learn. Right.
Right. Right.
So it just, I don't know, that just brought, I kind of went on a tangent, but it bothered me
Of
that,
course.
that it's like, no, of course not. Of course life isn't like you was when you were 10, right? Of course we might have two genders. There's been transgender folks around for forever. You didn't know about it maybe, right? But it's to say we got to learn to grow. There's no blueprint. It's just like saying, I don't want to use a smartphone because back in my day, we only had flip phones. Like, no, right? Life evolves.
Right. And you walk around flipping it open
right.
because you're refusing to evolve. Get out of here.
Right, exactly. So it's about the not having that blueprint, but being open and willing to evolve in life. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
And so, I very rarely, now I'm going to go and research Neo.
I'm sorry.
No. I'm glad you did, because I very rarely respond to stuff like that. But I think this is one I'm going to respond to. I'm having to do a video. Because my response, or when you put this out, this clip can be the response, right? But my response to Neo, obviously without reading or hearing the entire interview or context of what it was, but just that snippet alone, when I grew up, there was only two genders. That's what you say, right? So what I would say to that is, when Black people came to America, there were people and there were animals, and Black people were not considered in the former. What if we would have stayed in that mindset? When Black people were considered animals and sold as animals.
And we didn't evolve our mindset.
And we didn't evolve our mindset and our language beyond people and animals. And what if Black people didn't fight for the right to be called what we are? People. I'm a human being. I am not an animal. Right. So that fight had to happen. And that was one level of evolution. So now we've gotten to this point of evolution. There's a book called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Fraley. And he talks about how the oppressor becomes the oppressed when they have found what they think is freedom. And so now it's very interesting to me, especially when people who are in positions of power, and I say positions of power because power isn't necessarily always money. Power is influence. And Neo and other celebrities are in positions of influence. So I find it interesting that a person who has clearly come through oppression, right? All things considered, now says, well, in my day, there were only two genders. Well, guess what? In your mama and daddy's day, your grandparents' day, there were animals and there were people, and your grandparents were not considered people. What do you do with that?
You just gave me goosebumps, because that is the exact argument I was telling somebody about this whole situation.
Wow.
Of how we need to learn how to evolve. It's similar to the same thing I was saying. So that's powerful, right? I don't know what else to say.
Right? I mean, seriously, I don't get it, because I get it because there's a resistance to evolution. Right. It is what it is. Exactly. But we see it clear as day. You either resist or you go with the flow, and you go with the river, and you get in the flow and stay in the flow. Right. Yep. And, unfortunately, some people they like to stay in the tension. Instead of saying, oh my God, that's a new concept. Wonderful. Let
me learn about it. Right. Exactly.
That's a concept, learning. Wow.
Yes, absolutely. And what's so crazy is that earlier you said that one day there's going to be a Black trans man as president. And then whenever that happens, because I believe that it will, this conversation that we having right now will be null and void, right? It won't matter. Because, and then it'll be something else that people don't like 100 years from now, right? So, and then people be like, what? We had a problem with trans folks? Well, I can't believe that.
Can't believe that.
Yeah.
So just like gay folks now. Yeah, right. It's like, I think some gay people forget about Stonewall, right? Like even white gay people don't even acknowledge the fact that the reason you can sit in that bar is because of Stonewall. Absolutely. Black trans women. Like that, but that's the whole nother 3 hour. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot
Right.
too. And just even small things of like before Target snatched all their shit out the store, that you can even go into the store and buy stuff, and you can
Yeah,
buy it online and all,
come on.
And
Yes.
but I will say in
Yes.
certain areas, right? Because everybody is not free to do that in certain states and certain cities.
Sure.
So
Sure.
let's talk about geographically in certain areas, right? But
Sure. Sure.
I can go out here and wear a trans beautiful shirt, and I ain't had no problem where I'm at, right? So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, evolving, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's touch on a little bit. I want to talk about your education a bit. You have a doctorate in business administration, right? You got
Mhm.
3 master's degrees. You got a bachelor of science and certificate from Harvard, divinity. All of these accolades, which I'm very
Yes.
proud of you, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you for accomplishing that. And I
Thank
want
you.
to ask you, was this something that, because when I talk about and I think about trans men of color, we think about a lot of times we stuff with these statistics
Hmm.
of trans men of color being low employed and
Hmm.
unemployed and homeless,
Hmm. Hmm.
unhoused, excuse me, and all of
Hmm.
these negative things. But then we see somebody like yourself that's highly educated. Do you feel
Hmm.
as if that was a part of your transitional journey, or did that come before?
The education that I have.
Yeah.
So it all came before, like all the degrees that I have, except for my Harvard Divinity certificate. I
Mm.
got that a couple of years ago. I got that actually during the pandemic. Um, it all was in preparation for my transition, though. Now I know that. When I was going through it, I didn't know it. I'm a person. I just won, like the military paid for like a lot of my degrees, and I was like, I'll never forget. I was in Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, attending a school for the military for a promotion, and as a result, I got another master's degree, right? And I'll never forget. There was a man from the Tuskegee Airmen. He came and spoke to us. And at this time, I had literally just finished my doctorate degree, maybe 8 months before. So honestly, I was like, you know, I don't need this degree. I got enough degrees. I got my doctorate. My ego was like
Mm.
my head, right? And I'll never forget. It's like I was in the auditorium by myself. He was talking directly to me. Of course, it was filled with other officers, right? And he said, "How dare you sit in this seat and not do your best? There was a time when you couldn't even be in this room and you getting a whole degree." It was like he was talking to me directly, right? And he said, "How dare you sit in this seat and not maximize your potential?" And from that day forward, I got all of my shit together
Mm.
because I was literally skating through the program because I had so many other degrees. And he and I can't even remember his name, but I can see it clearly right now. I remember the day, but he literally let me know. He reminded me of my history in that moment. And how dare I sit there just because I got a free ride and not maximize my potential, right? And so I made a commitment then to maximize every opportunity that I have. At that time, I had my doctorate and a master's. And so I went on to get that master's and another master's degree, right? I now realize that the degrees get me in the rooms that I'm blessed to go in, right? Unfortunately, oftentimes I still don't get the respect in
Mm.
those rooms.
Mm.
And we can have a whole nother podcast about that, and a podcast about how I'm treated as a man versus how I was treated as a woman with doctor in front of my name, right? It's completely different, completely different. So I now realize that many of my degrees that I achieved, if you will, were for my transition so that I can be the example, so that I can teach other people. Like my life is the blueprint. It is. My life is the blueprint. And, I need to create the blueprint, if you will, but I believe that's what we're doing now with 100 Black Trans Men and creating and building that legacy, not for me, but for us, for all Black trans men. And I'm very specific, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but I'm very specific about saying Black trans men and not Black and brown trans men, and not Black trans women and not Black and brown trans women. And I'm very specific about that because it is time for us to stand up and do and be recognized for what we came here in this earth to do. And that is, it has to be, in my opinion, spoken just as it was given to me. It wasn't given to me any other way than 100 Black trans men. And so that is the road that we're journeying.
I love that. So when folks ask you that, they ask you the question, well, hey, what about me? I'm not Black, but I'm a trans man. What response do you have to that?
Well, my response is the statistics and the unemployment rate and the education and the access that you have because you're a white, say, for example, a white trans man that I don't have, that you don't have, Sean, simply by existing. And so I'm happy to help you establish an organization. I'm happy to collaborate with you, but this organization is for us. Period. Done.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. I love it.
That's it.
I love it.
That's you. I mean, well, yeah, we could go on to say places that we're not gonna get into because of who we are.
Right.
And I'm very, and I thought about that, Sean. I thought, like, what people gonna say? And the guy was like, "Don't you worry about that. I got that." Right. Okay. So I'm doing what I was told to do, bro.
Yeah, as long as you're doing what you're told to do, it's gonna work out. I was
told to do.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So when you say that you get into other spaces, that your education brings you into other spaces, that leads me to say that you also have been on television. Am I correct?
I have been on a few times.
Famous. You want to tell us more about that a little bit?
Yes. So, I started my acting career, interestingly. My acting career catapulted, if you will, my transition as well. So that next week, no, it was that same weekend when I heard that it is finished, when I was prayed for, I was auditioning for my very first play at Emory University Theater here in Atlanta. Someone tagged me on a random post and they were like, "You should apply for this. I think I'm Superman and I can do anything." So I applied for it. My audition was horrible and the director loved me though, and she hired me. Right. And it was perfect for me because one role was a trans man and another role that I played was of a gender neutral person. And that's actually the space that I was navigating in, my kind of gender neutrality, if you will. And so I got the audition, did the play, and there was a line in the play where I was looking in the mirror. One of my characters that I played was looking in the mirror, and they said, maybe it's supposed to be this way. And I literally saw myself as a little girl, like looking at myself in that mirror as a little girl. And I knew in that moment, Sean, that was my moment. Looking in the mirror, I was like, I'm about to transition. I'm about to evolve into who I was called to be. And in the process of that, I also learned a side of my brain that I didn't have an appreciation for before, and that was the creative side. I've always been a type A checklist oriented person, never artsy, never like a lot of colors on my walls. And when I started acting, I was able to become other things and other people and tap into a space that I had, quite frankly, never tapped into before. And I found a love for it. I found a love for storytelling. Obviously, as you can see, I love to talk. I found a love for storytelling, and I found a love for telling our stories, which is what I do now. I'm actually producing a couple of short films, and it's another vehicle for visibility and representation for us. I want little kids to see me and Sean on TV and say, whether they know we're trans or not, but they look into our eyes and they know it's something about that black man that resonates with my soul, right down in the depths of my soul. And then they might see you, on the Oprah show later, and you say, well, I'm a trans man. And that kid is like, oh my God, I knew it was something. I knew it was something about Sean. And so that's one of my goals as a producer and director and actor, is to show us on television, on media. Right now, there's two that I can name. There's two, including me, three Black trans male actors, right? And like, how many billion people are there in the world?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I love that. So you putting into the world, into the universe, that we're gonna be on Oprah. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, that's without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, it's done. It's already done. We're gonna send this clip. Oprah.
I love
hey
it.
Oprah.
Hey Oprah. Hey Auntie.
Hey Auntie.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Hey, so this is the part of the show where I love to ask the guest a random question. So I've created a list of questions. Now I'm on 31. And so I randomly just pick questions. I've waken up out of my sleep and like, oh, that's a question I'm gonna put on the list, right?
Okay.
And so the questions may or may not have anything to do with what we talked about today. So just pick a number between 1 and 31, and then I'll read you that question.
22.
22. Oh, okay. Number 22 says, name 4 famous people, dead or alive, who you would invite over for the perfect dinner party.
Oh, Maya Angelou, Oprah Winfrey, Jada Pinkett, and Denzel Washington.
Nice. You want to tell why any of those?
So Maya Angelou is one of my spiritual guides. Like, as crazy as that may sound to people, like, she has been a huge part of my transition. And I've had dreams and visions, and we've had conversations of things that are actually coming to fruition now. So to experience her in the flesh, I've experienced her in the spirit. And so to experience her in the flesh and like over dinner, I probably would be so nervous I wouldn't even be able to eat my chicken, like, for real. And Oprah, because she's just so wise to me. I love her perspective on consciousness, which a lot of people know her as a television talk show host, but she is one of the most conscious driven individuals that I know. And I love her intuitiveness. And I can't wait to have a conversation with her about that. Jada, because she just fine. And I just want to ask Jada, what you want for dinner?
I'm with you on that one. Okay.
And I'll ask Mr. Smith's permission. I'll invite him too. And Denzel, because he's very wise, and I love his acting ability. And I would just love to sit at his feet and hear his stories about acting in his career and life as a Black man. Because that's the other thing for us, Sean. I don't know about you, but I didn't have many Black male role models like actually in my life growing up as a kid. So when I transitioned, I had to figure out, like, what does being a Black man mean for me, for a person like me, right? Because I'm not trying to duplicate a cis Black man. I'm not. I'm trying to create Elijah. What does being a Black man for Elijah mean to me? And now for 100 Black trans men, what do it mean for us? Right?
I love that.
Thank you.
Now that you say that, I'm like, I guess I mean, I had uncles, but I don't know if my uncles were somebody that I necessarily want to be like, but I didn't either, right? So it's like it was a crash course to being a Black man. Okay, transition, boom, there you go. You're now a Black man. So you kind of got to figure the shit out, right?
Yeah.
How you want to be, and and with the intersectionalities of who you used to be, and like it's a lot. Well, that's a whole other episode right there.
You know what? You just gave me an idea too for a superhero movie.
Ooh.
Okay. Or it's like superhero cartoon, like a trans Black man, like, boom, now you're a Black man. You know how Superman comes out and it's like, Superman, or Batman, like,
I love that.
Wonder Woman. Yeah, we gotta do something. A Black trans man superhero. You heard it first here. Me and Sean about to create it. Boom.
Yes. Put a thank you to Sean Aaron in the credits, please.
No, we gonna
Hey,
create it together,
oh,
bro.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
Let's
I'm
do it.
for sure with it. I'm with it. Hey, this it's been a pleasure. Elijah, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I appreciate you. Is there any last little words that you would like to say to somebody that's listening? Any bit of advice or anything like that?
I just want to say, likewise, it's been a pleasure spending this time with you. I'm so grateful for you having me on your show. I really enjoyed it. You know, I love when I can look at the screen and see myself, right? And see the excellence that you exude through the screen and your amazing positive light and positive energy. So thank you for being you and doing the work that you do and bringing visibility and representation to our voices and our faces. So thank you. You're needed and necessary. And I can't wait to have you talk to 100 Black trans men about something like seriously, because I think that our men would really enjoy your light and your love and your energy. So
I appreciate that, Elijah. Thank you.
you're welcome. So to any trans person out there who may be listening, whether you're a Black trans male or trans woman or person of different ethnicity or race, you know, I just want to tell you that you are loved and you are worthy and you are necessary and you were created purposefully. Like, don't let people fool you into thinking that you're a mistake. You are not a mistake. Once we get through this tension, this culmination in the earth that we're going through, I believe that we're going to see trans people thrive in ways that we have never seen before. And you're necessary in the bringing that to fruition. I'm Dr. Elijah Nicholas on all of my social media handles. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Well, thank you. That was a great closing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sean.
So we have reached the end of this episode. I want to say thank you for listening to Dem Bois Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Sean Aaron, he, him, his. Be sure to visit our website at dembois.org. That is DEMBOIS.org. If you would like to connect with us, be sure to follow us on Instagram or Facebook. If you think you would be a great guest on the show, or if you know somebody you think would be a great guest on the show, there's multiple ways to request to be a guest on the show. First is you can go visit our Instagram page, click the link in our bio, and from there you'll be able to request to be a guest on the show. Or you can visit our website, click the programs tab up top, scroll down to podcast, click the podcast button, and from there on the podcast page, you'll be able to request to be a guest on the show. Yo, we need questions, y'all. If you have those burning questions, a question that you want to ask me or a future guest on the show, there's multiple ways that you can send in questions, right? So first, you can go to Instagram, DM us that question, or you can email us at hello@dembois.org. That's HELLO, like hi, at dembois.org. Be sure to like the show. Be sure to share this show out with your friends and other folks in your networks. So until next time, take care.